Friends, fans, and fine folk, grab your drinks and snacks and come on down to the campfire for this short rest with me and my friend Rem Alternis. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great, thank you. It is good to have you here.
It's good to
How's
be here.
how's how's things? Is it because you're East Coast US, right?
Yeah.
So you've already had a day. I'm starting my day. You've had a day. How's your day been?
3:09 p.m. No, it's good. It's Friday, which always means that I'm exhausted.
Yeah,
So
yeah. End of a work week. Do you get to actually have a weekend? Do you work hours where you can actually just stop and go home and
no, I
no
work for
no
I have two companies, so I'm
yeah
I'm kind of never not working. I do like half days, so I kind of did a half day today, and then but I'm actually covering for one of my employees over the weekend, so I've got a full weekend ahead of me.
yeah. Whew. Big old weekend. Well, let's jump in then, so I don't waste any of your valuable time. I'm just going to adjust volume a little bit because apparently you're a little quieter than I am, so I will adjust that. So welcome to Short Rest. This is just a chill chat and a chance for me to actually keep up to date with what the hell my friends are doing in the industry.
Yay!
Um, we'll start by setting up the short rest. If this is a short rest, then it must imply that we are on the middle of a quest and we need to be having a rest to get our spell slots and things back. So what do you reckon we're doing? Or what is the short rest equivalent in a Shadowrun world?
Ooh, in Shadowrun, downtime, I
Downtime?
guess.
Having a little
Yeah,
downtime. What
it's
would what would we be doing on our downtime right now?
probably in Shadowrun, gosh, we'd be cleaning our weapons, we'd be preparing our foci, we'd be getting ready for for the next part of the
For
run.
the next part, yeah, because it's pretty full on, right? It's pretty full
Yep.
on in the Shadowrun. It's like you're straight from one thing into the next, and there's no room for error. You're gonna get killed or something otherwise. Who's the
Fair.
little puppy we can see right now? Sorry for
This
those
is Kip.
listening in audio
Um,
only.
this is Kip. He is one of my
Oh, he's
two
so
boys. The other
cute.
one is being a good boy sleeping under my table, but
Oh
I'm
my god,
talking,
Kip
which
is
means
so
it
cute.
must be to him. Uh,
Give me
so he must.
attention.
Yep.
Oh, he's a little
You say
cutie,
hi.
that's for sure.
Thank you.
He's a little cute one. So we're cleaning our weapons. We're having a short rest. I like to start with talking about sort of the past of Rem Alternis, I guess. Rem Alternis. We got. Where did the where? Let's talk about names. Where did the name come from? Both Rem, if that's not your legal name, I assume it's a there's some kind of
Right.
chosen name there for what do they
Yeah.
call them, stage names?
Yeah, the company came before I adopted it as my alias, but it means alternate reality in Latin.
Oh right, yes, because obviously I could see the Alternus bit, and I was like, it's
Right.
something alternating or something, but no, I didn't realize REM was reality,
Mm-hmm.
alternate
Yeah,
reality.
it took. I remember going out to like all of my friend groups and being like, it has to be something that means something, and we
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
rejected so
yeah.
many names
So
and
how
had
did
so
it?
many
So how
ideas.
did it come about? Was it Latin for a reason? Were you choosing like you looked at alternate reality in Greek and ancient Egyptian as well?
I've
easier
always been
to easier
partial.
to spell than hieroglyphics.
I've always been partial to Latin because I took it in high school and helped me on my ACTs and SATs and whatever T's. But I loved I've always loved Latin and Roman history and stuff like that. So I put it into a translator as we came up with different words. Um,
Right.
because like alternate reality productions didn't quite have
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
same
yeah.
feel to it. So
Nice. That's cool.
yeah,
So how
so
many?
a lot
How
of
many?
Google Translate.
Yeah, yeah. How many? Roughly, how many names on the list do you reckon you went through before uh,
Oh God,
choosing?
this was probably 6 or 7 years ago at this point. So I can't remember like a number, but it was a lot of different like group chats in Messenger.
Uh huh.
Like, what do you guys think of this? Or who has ideas about this? And then over here
Yeah.
checking this, oh, something a little, something that has to bounce a little more, or like
Right.
things like
Yeah.
that. We also even thought about Alternus Rem. instead of
Oh
Rem
yeah,
Alternis, and we were like, no.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, Rem
uh,
Alternis at least sounds like a name as well. Like when you then went on to adopt it for yourself, that's
right.
like it does sound like it could be like used as a name. So how did that decision come about? Once you decided it for the company, how long before you were like, I'm also just gonna go by Rem?
Um, I decided it kind of two things happened. I when I started streaming on Gen Con TV, I was like, all right, like starting to get a little more publicity, so maybe so I kind of did it, but not regularly.
Yeah,
And then when I started with Catalyst, I was like, okay, I'm going to be going to a lot of events,
yeah.
like maybe just in case I might want to have like a private life and a personal life and stuff like that. Especially, being a woman in the industry and stuff like that, just in case.
Gulp.
Um, and it
didn't think
actually,
didn't think that far ahead with myself. I'm like, I want the
well,
fame. Bring me
yeah,
the fame and the fun.
so
Everybody gotta know my name.
it actually worked out because shortly after starting with Catalyst, I started getting harassed
All right.
online. So I was like, yep, I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, nice, smart idea. Oh god, online. We literally can't do this without them. But hey, if we could.
Right.
So how did it begin? Like, how did your journey into TTRPGs in general begin?
Um, Funny enough, I swore when I was in college, I was like, I'm a dork. I'm not a nerd, and I will
Yeah.
never watch Star Trek, and I will never play D&D. So clearly, I'm a big liar and hypocrite. Um, but I did fencing in college,
All right.
and my fencing coach was we were very close, so he wanted to run D&D. So I was like, "Ugh, I guess I'll play. Um, and I had a lot of fun with it. And I played a druid, or no, I think I was a ranger, my first character. Um, and he was very cinematic in his storytelling, and I loved it. So that was my first time playing. And then as it kind of came and went, I
Mm-hmm.
played. I think the next game I played was Vampires the Masquerade.
Right.
And when I moved to Chicago, um, I started playing D&D with my new boyfriend and his friend group, and that's actually how I was introduced to Shadowrun. One of our players was one of the writers for Shadowrun, so
Right. Okay.
of course I hadn't learned from my being hypocritical. So when our D&D campaign ended, he was like, "I want to run this cyberpunk fantasy RPG for you," and I was
Yeah.
like, "That sounds stupid." And now it's like my entire persona is Shadowrun,
Like, I'm too cool for that. Yeah,
right?
I'm playing D&D now, but I'm not going to stoop as low as playing other TTRPGs.
Right.
D&D's the gateway drug to getting people into all sorts of different TTRPGs. So
Yeah.
so Shadowrun started. So you say he's a writer for Shadowrun, as in like the one of the novellas or one of the like writers of
The
the actual game.
One of the rulebook writers. I think he
Wow.
specializes more in the fiction side, but in the books there are fiction subsets
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. But he does write rules too. And he actually he put me and my friend group in one of the books back in fifth edition,
Oh
and it was
wow.
before we had even played. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I guess if I buy a book, it's going to be that one. Uh, Still don't care.
That's amazing. So then, how long a gap between the campaign, the D&D campaign, and the Shadowrun? Did you just jump straight into it?
um,
Did it take
it
some convincing?
kind of. It took convincing because I was like, fine, if we're gonna play, I don't want to. I didn't like crunch.
Right.
I
Uh-huh.
was barely comfortable with D&D rules. I was like,
Yeah.
tell me what to roll on my dice, and I did it.
Yeah.
Hooray! I was in the role play side, not the
Yeah.
mechanic
Yeah. Yeah.
side. And so the GM made my character for me, and would tell me what to roll and stuff. And I was still doing theater in Chicago at the time, and we had a show that ended. So I was kind of going through character withdrawal. So I was like, I guess I'll give it a crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's when I started falling in love with the story he was telling, the setting, the characters in our group. Um, and I actually decided after 2 years of playing that I wanted to tell the story. Um, but I'm not a writer, so I
Right.
kind of verbally vomited for a
Yeah.
while before I was like, I could make this into a series. So I I wrote a pilot episode script. The writer took me to the line developer at Gen Con, and he was like, cool, what do you want from me? And I was like, tell me to keep going. And he's like, keep going. Um, so eventually that led to a Kickstarter. Catalyst was the third backer on it, and we did a trailer, and there's a live action trailer for the series we want to produce if we can get
Nice.
the licensing for Shadowrun, cool. If not,
Yeah.
it's still cyberpunk fantasy that we
Yeah.
could go elsewhere with. So that
That's
was my
amazing.
first project as Alternis Productions.
So what was it that made you know that you needed a company of your own for doing that rather than just doing it
Uh,
privately, as it
well,
were?
I pitched it to after about a year of editing with the line developer. That's when we took it to the CEO of Catalyst,
Right.
Lauren, and he was like, cool, but the problem is the license for Shadowrun isn't owned by Catalyst. They have the license, or they license from Topps Corporation that does the baseball cards.
Oh. Oh. Okay.
They have the
Oh.
license, so so basically he can spend like promotional dollars
Mm.
on Shadowrun, but he doesn't have the film rights, so it would have to
Right.
fall under promotion, and he was willing to spend like a certain amount of money, but with film, it's never,
Yeah. That's never enough.
it's not $2,000 to make
Yeah.
a trailer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, we spent $16,000 on it from the Kickstarter, and
Oh
everyone
wow.
still worked for cheap, if not free.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so, but making the company was a way for us to do it on a professional level, and then instead of having it be a Catalyst product, have it be a Rem Alternis Productions product, and then when we're ready to take the pitch to Tops, be like, this is why we should be the ones to do that.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
But then COVID happened, so everything
Yeah.
stopped.
And then everything was like, ground to a halt. So what was your beginnings with Gen Con TV then? You say that came before Catalyst?
Yeah, so after everything shut down from COVID, we kind of just turned to streaming. We were like, well,
Yeah.
we want to see people. Most of my friends are across the country. That friend group that I'd been playing Shadowrun and D&D with fell apart with my breakup. So everyone was far away. So we were like, well, let's start streaming. So we we still have our first D&D show on YouTube, where like every week there's a tech issue where you can't hear us or can't see us or whatever the case may be. So you can see our very beginnings. But we had a lot of fun putting it on, and for me the goal was short form or shorter form
Mm.
D&D content, because everything in me should love Critical Role, but when you
Mm.
tell me that there's 248 episodes that are 4 hours long each for season one, I'm like, anxiety spike. I
Yeah.
can't make that kind of a commitment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
wanted
I get
something that
that.
was like 20 episodes.
Yeah.
So we did the starter set adventure. We did the Lost Mines of Fandelver
Right.
for episodicals 1. And then we did the essentials kit for the Dragon of Icefire Peak.
Dragon of
That was
Icefire, yeah.
our episodicals 2. So we started streaming more and more, and we started getting better and better at it. We started branching into other RPGs and Shadowrun and stuff like that. And so for Gen Con TV, funny enough, I had started going to a couple conventions. I had been to Origins and Gen Con and Gary Con, which is Gary Con's a small event in
Mm-hmm.
Lake
And like
Geneva,
Geneva, yeah, I'll be
Wisconsin.
going next year.
Yeah, and it's a very good networking event. Like if you want to meet anyone in D&D, like that's where
Mm.
you go.
Right.
So I had been, and it was kind of cool. Got to meet some industry folks and talk, and I really liked the vibe of the event. And so after I had gone, a few weeks later, I had seen like mutual contacts show up on Facebook, and
Mm-hmm.
one of them was Peter Atkinson,
Right, yeah.
um, who I'm one of like, I don't research like who's who in
Yeah.
or anything like
Yeah.
that. So I didn't know who he was, and I was like, might be a cool person to know. Um, So I friended him, he accepted, and then a few weeks later he was like, "Hey, I'm now managing Gen Con TV, and I'm what kind of content would people like to see?" And I was like, "I do content here." And our second D&D Episodicals campaign was a predominantly Black cast. We did an LGBTQ plus cast for Episodicals 3.
Hmm.
And based on our quality and our diversity, Peter chose us.
Nice.
Um, so we started doing Shadowrun. We still do Shadowrun. It's been almost 2 years actually, and it's
So
we
Shadowrun was the episodical 3? Like you went to Shadowrun?
no we Episodicals 3 was still D&D. It was the
Was it another
sequel
module?
to Dragon of Icebearer Peak, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I remember the one. I can't
and
remember what
that
it's
was our
called, but yeah.
LGBTQ plus cast. So then what we did was we made a new show that was Shadowrun. It's called Shadowrun Emerald Glitch
Hmm.
for Gen Con TV, and that's on weekly, except we take the second Thursday off to give the cast a break and play a one shot of whatever we want.
Right.
So we've had like game developers come on and play with us and stuff like that. And then an hour before the show, every single week, I do an interview show
Hmm.
called Rules of Cool. And so finally, after a couple months, I was like, maybe I'll interview Peter. So I start
Yeah.
researching him, and I'm like, oh, founder of Wizards of the Coast, partial owner of Gen Con, the reason Magic the Gathering exists.
Yeah.
Oops.
Nah, there's no oops there.
So
There's no oops as far as I'm concerned. Like you did the right way. Like you don't because if you'd have known all of that about him before it, suddenly you're treating him like he's not a person. Suddenly you're treating him because of all of his accomplishments. You're treating him like he's a,
right,
he's above you in some way, and he's not. Like he's done all these things and he's accomplished
and
great, and he's a fantastic worker. But he's a person and he's working and
so
stuff.
kind.
He's such a
Yeah,
nice guy. Yeah, I met him at Gen Con
very
this year.
sweet person.
I'm kind of the same line. The reason I gave up on pursuing acting as a career back in 2017 was that I finally sort of did some self-reflection and realised that I just wasn't enjoying it because of all of the sort of shitty fake networking. You have to be seen talking to the right people and you have to be schmoozing, and it all just felt fake, and I didn't enjoy it. And then I refused to do it for D&D either. Like I'm not gonna suck up to people and know that I'm not gonna have done every bit of research about a person. If I've not met you, why would I know you? That's kind of the view that I take. And as some of that comes from British culture as well. Of like, if I haven't been formally introduced, I'm not going to presume to have known you. Like, I'm not going to use your name against you as if I know who you are when I haven't been introduced to you. Like, I'll use your title, or I'll use your surname or something. Hey, nice to meet you, so and so. Like, it just seems too personable for me to be like, hey Peter, when I've never met him, kind of thing. Like that's just it's just wrong. And like I'm not gonna pretend to know everything that there is to know about a person until you've met the person. So I'm perfectly fine with just being like, yeah, I know you're somehow big in the industry, but like I'm busy doing my own stuff over here. Like I can't possibly have enough time to be keeping a track of what everybody's doing in every aspect of the industry.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, it's the industry over here in the US especially, it's big enough that there's a lot of variety and there's a lot of friendly competition and stuff like that, but it's also small enough that you run into everyone
Yeah.
eventually. And so you never know who's done what. I've sat down at events with groups of people I have no idea who they are, and find out that they are one of the people, like the founder. It just happened actually a couple weeks ago at Gamehole Con. There was a after party, and I went and sat down with people, and I was like, "Hi, I'm from Catalyst," and they were like, "Oh, I am the founder of it was a Pinnacle." I always get Pinnacle and Palladium
Oh
mixed
yeah,
up.
yeah,
Big difference.
yeah.
And so I was like, "Oh, holy crap!" Like you just never know who
Yeah.
you're
Who you
sitting
talking
down
to?
with.
Yeah, it was funny. We had a couple of moments like that at Gen Con. I was just chatting with somebody at like some after party or something, and talking away. And then the next day, I just kind of didn't really even come up the topic of like what either of us do for a living. It was just like we're somehow involved in something. I was just chatting to them like people. And then the next day, I think was the final after party, and I saw the same two guys walking around with like a VIP badge on, and I was like, who are they?
Yeah.
And somebody was like, oh, they that's so and so from Total Party Chill, and like so and so from they start playing the website and I was like, oh yeah, I know that website.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
talking to people who are bigger names than you realize, and just treating them
Ex-
like people because
exactly.
they're
And
just people.
it's a very down to earth industry, which I really like. I've only met a couple people that are like, you don't know who I am.
Yeah,
It's like, well,
fuck
now
that.
I just
Fuck
don't care.
this. Yeah,
'Cause
now I don't care who we are. I had a person. So what part of it's kind of like a doubling down for me as well, because on top of like just English culture, it's also because I got that experience at drama school. When I was doing my degree in acting, I at one point had some guest some guest director came to do auditions for a cabaret or something. And she had very much like a "you don't know who I am" kind of attitude. When at the end of the audition, I said, "Thank you very much for the opportunity to audition. I'm Robert, by the way," and I went over to like shake her hand and like ask for a formal introduction. And then my acting coach the next day was like, "Did you go over and introduce yourself to so and so?" I don't even remember her name, ironically now. "Did you go over and introduce yourself to so and so after the thing? Like, you should probably know who you were auditioning for before you auditioned." Giving me like this sarcastic bullshit, like, and he really like laid it on thick for the next week or so. Every time he'd see me, he'd be like, "Oh, introducing yourself, blah blah blah." And my mum pointed out to me like a week later when I was ranting to her about it. She was like, "This is the same guy who's all about being culturally sensitive because the drama school I went to is here in New Zealand, and it's a bicultural school with a heavy influence of Maori culture." And they also have a lot of influence of Pacific Island culture and things as well. So they're like super inclusive of all these different cultures, these Pacific Island cultures. And she goes, how hypocritical that he's ignoring the fact that it is very British culture to not be introduced, to the point where there's like jokes about it. I remember when I was a kid, it was like two Englishmen, two Irishmen, two Scotsmen all get shipwrecked on an island, and then a year later, the Irishmen are still fighting each other. The Scotsmen have made a distillery on the beach and are making whiskey from coconuts, and the Englishmen are still waiting to be formally introduced. after a year on a beach together, like it's so much so that it's like kind of like oh, I'm sorry, I haven't nobody's actually introduced me, so I can't go over and say hello. And when she said that, I was like, yeah, that is just like, it's just normal to me that you should need to be introduced to someone before you can assume to know them. So
Right.
it really just pissed me off, and obviously, evidently, like 12 years later, I'm still angry about it. So yeah, I never assume that people will know who I am, and I will never assume to know who anybody else is, no matter how big they are. Like if I meet Matt Mercer one day, I'll be like, "Hey, it's lovely to meet you. I like your work," but I won't presume to know who he is beyond that.
Right, right. Yeah, it's polite, it's not presumptuous, and they get so many people anyway that are expecting things from them where it's like, "Oh, this person can help my career," or "This
Yeah,
person
yeah,
can sign my book," or "This person can do this." So like being able to meet people that are just like, "Hi."
yeah. It's good to now be in a position where I don't need to feel like I need to do all of that schmoozing. Like I don't need
Right.
to be seen talking to the right people and stuff. I can just take things at my own pace, and I'm influential enough in the industry that I don't like. I can look at my own success right now and go, I'm fine with where I'm at, and if this doesn't
Mhm.
grow, I'm fine. Like I'm paying the bills. And so that takes off a lot of the desperation that comes from that networking, that schmoozing. That unfortunately is like a catch-22, or like a vicious circle of like, if you are not succeeding enough, or if you're not paying the bills enough, and you're like, I really need more work, and that desperation to need to network can easily come out and make you off-putting because
Yeah.
of the desperation of like, oh, you're only talking to me because I'm a bigger name in the industry than you, or whatever.
Yeah,
And
it's
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 very
nice
obvious.
because there are still some of those people in the industry where people I'll see at shows, and as soon as I see them, I'm like, who's with them? Because they are going to find the most quote unquote important person that they think is important, and they're going to follow them around the entire show.
Yeah,
Um, and that's who they want to be friends with because there's a use
yeah,
there rather than just like, hey, we connect, we're friends now.
yeah,
Um, so it's definitely like, but the industry is also small enough too where like if you treat people like trash, you're gonna hear about it. Like everyone's gonna
Yeah,
know about it at some point.
yeah,
So
yeah, for sure.
it's kind of nice that for the most part it's filled with good people
Yeah,
and good intentions. So
yeah. I've not yet met anybody who's like really just been like a "don't meet your idols" kind of a situation where you realize that they're assholes. Thankfully,
yeah,
everybody that I've met that I've been really overjoyed to have met, like people that I've now gotten a chance to work with as peers that I enjoyed their content before I got into it as a creator myself. Like now I'm on the peer level with them, and they all seem to be so far very lovely people, which is great.
that's awesome. Yeah,
So,
that's really cool.
you started. So timeline wise, you got into TTRPGs reluctantly, and then you got into Shadowrun specifically
Reluctantly.
reluctantly, and then you started. So what was the first thing? The first thing was wanting to then you like once you were in Shadowrun, you were really in it and wanted to do
The
the
Chicago
trailer.
Shadows trailer, yeah.
So what
Yep.
was what was like the spark of wanting to do that in the first place, like the trailer?
Just falling in love with the world and the setting and the characters that my GM was telling.
Yeah,
Like he's a talented storyteller, and he got us invested, and we cared, and I wanted to. One of the things, it's funny because one of the things about Shadowrun is that when I was learning, we had someone that really loved Shadowrun that would always say, "Well, one of the things about Shadowrun," and I was like, "Oh my God, shut up!" Now I do it
I have
constantly.
a I have a command in my Twitch chat here for exclamation mark Pathfinder or exclamation mark Dag or something, because Dead Aussie Gamer will often like not so much these days, but he used to just be like, well, in Pathfinder, anytime anytime they'd talk about something I didn't like about D&D, I was like, yeah, D&D is blah blah blah, and he'd be like, well, in Pathfinder, and so now I've just got an
Now it's
alert
well
that
in
says, shut up,
Shadowrun.
Dag.
Well, the things that I really like about Shadowrun that kind of pulled me in and got me hooked in a way that no other RPG has is the it brings fantasy to our world. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's 60 years in the future, but it's our world, which makes magic possible in our world, which I
Yeah,
love.
yeah,
Um, the other thing is the fact that it's punk. So you're punching up. Like, Shadowrunners are criminals. You're living in the
yeah.
shadows doing these deniable asset mercenary like jobs, but it doesn't mean you're the bad guy. You're subverting the corporations any chance you get. You're trying to defend people that can't defend themselves.
It has a very
Like
anti-capitalist kind of a bent to it as well.
exactly. It's largely, I mean, it's an anarchist game. And that's part of what I love about it is you punch up. You're never punching down. Um, and so like those kinds of stories, and there's always someone deeper behind it manipulating. There's always someone that's, like you never know who Mr. Johnson is that you're working for. So is it a corporation? Is it usually yes? Is it someone that's actually trying to defend? Or subverting expectations of their own that could be a contact. You just never know who's behind it, and you're going to get screwed a lot. Um, but also you need to survive. So it's you got to make your choices, and every choice that you make is a butterfly effect into, is this going to help you or hurt you later?
Have you ever seen? So I know that some people will take D&D and they'll use it to try and tell other stories as well, not just like fantasy. And people will say like, oh, you can use D&D for telling pirate stories, and you can use D&D for telling sci-fi stories, and you can use it for telling horror stories and stuff. Even though there are objectively better game systems for each of those things. Have you seen the same with Shadowrun? Do people try and use the system to tell anything other than Shadowrun setting stories?
Funny enough, no, because probably the biggest fight that you get into with fans of Shadowrun or non-fans of Shadowrun, even worse, is it is a crunchy system, and a lot of people do not like the system.
Right.
Gosh,
Because of all the
yeah,
dice?
yeah. So it's all the dice. It's like your character sheet if you're playing in missions is like 4 pages long. It can be overwhelming, and when you get into the game, then there's people who are like, well, I like all the crunch, but I don't like how armor's done and stuff like
Right.
that. It's so there's always someone is it what's the rating of this channel?
Oh,
Complaining. I'll
whatever
just
you
say
want.
complaining.
Whatever you want.
Always someone bitching, like
Yeah.
um But one of the things that I like about it is that there's 6 editions, so choose your edition, and then there's also Shadowrun Anarchy. So if you just love the world and you don't like the mechanics, it's a very rules light version. We just did actually a stream with Realmsmith and some of the Critical Role supporting actors.
Right.
It just ended. It's on YouTube. Matt Mercer makes an appearance and stuff like that,
Nice.
and we played Anarchy because to me it's about the storytelling. Like,
Yeah.
let's tell a good story, and then the players will come. They'll come to the system, but
Yeah.
you got to convince them that this is a story worth telling.
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, it's about the story first, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
always the case. Like to me, the system is like, yeah, whatever can help me tell the story, whatever system
Yeah.
can get out of the get out of the way of the storytelling. I do like. I'm a fan of crunch and like things myself. I quite like there to be mechanics for something, but I like there to be optional mechanics essentially. Like the way that I like to play is like if I want the option of not having to come up with on the fly how to rule something, I want there to be a table that's already been come up with that somebody else that I can be like, I'll just roll on this instead. Or I'll think about this rule because somebody else has already kind of balanced it to a certain extent. But I want a system that allows for me to just ignore that as well and be like, I'll make
funny
up a decision.
Funny enough, when I got to run a game for you at Gen Con, I'm not a GM. I don't have a mind for rules. Like, I've read the books and I still forget. Like, the Matrix is magic to me. So you tell me you want to do something in the Matrix, and I'll probably go, sure, yep, it works, good job.
Well, you did it, I guess.
Roll some dice. Yep, dice are happy. Let's do it.
Yeah.
But so I never get the rules 100%. But again, just like D&D or any other RPG, are your characters telling an engaging story? Are the
Mm-hmm.
dice helping to support that story, or sometimes hurting that story, because that's what dice
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
And the rest of it, like, your job as a GM is to make sure your players and your audience is having fun.
Yeah.
So
Make sure everybody's having fun, including yourself.
yeah.
Like you should be enjoying it as well. That's something that unfortunately gets missed a lot as GM advice. Is like, hey, you're playing as well. You're enjoying yourself, especially if you're not doing it as like a content creator or something, or like a GM for hire or something. Like if you're just playing it with your friends, then you're giving up your time just as much as they are, sometimes more.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
should be enjoying yourself. So you found.
Teslon, actually, shout out Teslon in the chat, is my main producer for all of our streaming. So he designed the overlay for Emerald Glitch on Gen Con TV. He's the reason our quality is as good as it is, and that we got picked for Gen Con TV. So
Wonderful.
thanks.
Good work, Tesla. So you started out. You went to you did the trailer. You went on to Gen Con TV. You started doing that. It started to pick up. Like you saw. Was it like an instant suddenly people were? It was like filling a niche that people were wanting, or was it like you were kind of just shouting into a void of other people doing the same similar things and trying to find your niche? Was it
What's
a struggle to find an audience at first?
um no. So the thing that I've noticed about streaming on Gen Con is that our viewership is great
Hmm.
from March to July, and then promptly after Gen Con, everyone forgets
Oh,
about Gen Con and it
interesting.
disappears.
Yeah.
Um, we're still one of the top viewed shows on Gen Con, but it's funny because in March to July, we'll finish and I'll check the next day and we'll have 2,200 views. But then, like, now I'll check and we're at like 400 views.
Right.
Um, so it just kind of depends. To me, it was more important to have the platform for Shadowrun and show our love and passion for it, and be able to use the interview show as a marketing tool, as and the one shot show as a marketing tool, and
Mm-hmm.
support other creators. We've had people on that are launching a Kickstarter next week.
Mm-hmm.
um, so we've done more with that, than really seeing an audience difference,
Mm-hmm.
or the revival of Shadowrun because of that. It's helped with other things, but I wouldn't say that was like a turning point or anything for us. Um, what kind of changed actually was in my personal life. I was like at a director of operations level. I had done specialty retail for college bookstores. I had managed for Starbucks, and then I was the director of operations level for a tech startup in Chicago, and our biggest competitor bought us, and I got laid off.
Ah,
And
bugger.
I went through a mourning period
Yeah, I bet.
where I was like, I just don't have it in me to care about anything that to care about selling for other people. Like I had
Mm-hmm.
given all of my soul to other people that I was
Yeah.
really willing to
Yeah.
give. And so I started turning the focus to REM and saying, well, what can we do? What's next for us?
Yeah.
And so we really started diving into so streaming was kind of doing its own thing and our community was kind of keeping that going. So we had run Kickstarters. So I was like, and I remember like one of the truest things I had heard when we were running our Kickstarter was, "You're finally ready to run your first Kickstarter after you've run your first Kickstarter."
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, "Well, let let me help other people and other creators do that." So we had
Mm-hmm.
some partnerships, we had done some Kickstarters, and then because of my relationship with Catalyst from doing Chicago Shadows and just being a groupie and hanging around them all the time. Um, I started doing their Kickstarters.
Right.
So I managed Shadowrun Edge Zone, and then BattleTech Mercenaries is the one this past spring that just did $7.5 million. It placed top 20 Kickstarter of all time across all categories and number
Jesus.
7 in gaming ever.
Holy cow.
Um, so that was massive. And since then, you know, Rem has gotten a lot of Kickstarter work, and we started getting into marketing as well. So a lot of game companies can't afford a full-time marketer. Well,
Yeah.
what if you pay us, you know, a certain amount, and we'll give you a certain portion of a person's time instead that's
Mm-hmm.
invested
Mm-hmm.
in you
Yeah.
rather than having like having to pay a full-timer or something
Yeah.
like that. So or learn the skills as they go as a volunteer. So
So when you
um,
say Kickstarter work and helping people with their Kickstarters, in what sort of aspect do you help them with their Kickstarters?
So we'll set up their campaign. We'll research other Kickstarters. We'll advise on rewards, stretch goals, budgets, content, layout. We'll do graphics, and then we'll start marketing for it. We have a couple of marketing partnerships, like BackerKit ads. We'll partner with
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. But our biggest bit of advice that um, sometimes doesn't get taken, and it kills me every time, is for a Kickstarter is you want project followers up front.
Yeah.
The conversion rate that we've seen is like if you have 1,000 project followers, assume that only 10% are going to actually back your
Mm-hmm.
project. That's
Yeah.
100 people.
Yeah.
That's not a lot.
Yeah.
And then so the largest we've seen, well, aside from BattleTech, which was special, is 10 to 30% conversion.
Right.
So those, if you assume the worst, those project followers are everything.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to raise $100,000 and got 100 you've got 150 project followers, god, don't launch, don't do it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It's not time.
It's not time. You're not going
um,
to do this. That makes
so,
sense.
so that's
I'm
what's hard, is the marketing and getting enough people to follow and click on it.
I'll have to you have to excuse me if I'm salivating because hearing you talk about this, I'm like, we need to talk outside of short
Yes.
rest. I'm going to be doing a Kickstarter myself next year, and specifically keeping it small for the same as you say. Like you're ready to do a Kickstarter after you've done your Kickstarter, and I've heard that from a few people, and I was like, I'm certainly not going to start with like whatever my main project is going to be. So I want to do a Kickstarter that is literally just about me learning how to do a Kickstarter. So I'm going to do like a probably like an adventure module, just like a single one-shot adventure that I can know I can write and I can have that done, and then I can like publish it and learn about all the different processes of what does it take to publish, what does it take to have an editor, what is it, how do I find a layout artist, and how do I find a proofreader and a sensitivity reader, and all the different elements of publishing a module before I go into like, all right, let's do an entire world setting or something like this.
It's really smart because every Kickstarter you do, even the unsuccessful ones, you still can send backer updates to those. So
Right.
every Kickstarter you run, you're getting new backers, you're getting new followers, you're getting new audience, and that's so important. So if you did 5 Kickstarters before you did your big one,
Yeah.
and you got
You're
100 people
learning
on
something
one and
from each
50 people
one.
on
Yeah.
one, like yeah, there's a little bit of crossover, but you're building your audience so that they're invested in you. You've shown you can deliver, and now more willing to take a risk on you
Yeah.
for something bigger.
It's very good
So
advice. I'll definitely be in touch to pick your brain a little more and maybe even
awesome, yeah.
utilize your services. Because yeah, we're looking at when that should be and like how much to be and all that sort of talk is happening now. Yeah, so that's so you started off doing so you after you did your Kickstarter and you started like helping others with those. That's kind of the direction that Rem Alternis took. Like,
Yep.
was that the main focus of Rem Alternis Productions, or is
Yeah.
that what else is would you say is kind of the flagship, as it were, or
Yeah.
the main
Whenever
body?
I talk about what we do, I say we do Kickstarter management. We do marketing, even if it's not related to Kickstarter. Like
Mm-hmm.
we have a contract with Monster Fight Club now. Boosted Reality Games, Rollicrit, which does all the Gen Con merch, and they just did the Bag of Holding Kickstarter. So we create their posts and like we do social media and marketing for them.
Right.
That is away from Kickstarter. So Kickstarter marketing, we do audiobook production.
What?
Yeah, I bet you didn't know that.
I didn't know that. We'll talk about audiobooks in a second.
Yeah. So, and then live streaming. So those are kind of our four
Right.
pillars right now. And taking shape and kind of trying to strategize what direction we go in. Like
Yeah.
even with live streaming, we have a Twitch channel, and it takes a lot of time and energy to keep people invested and growing
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So one of the things that we're talking about doing now is being more focused. We're it's our playground. Twitch is our playground, but YouTube might turn more into our marketing
Right.
streaming. So like we're going to do a 6 to 8 episode campaign of Mutants and Masterminds with the line developer of Mutants and
Oh,
Masterminds.
wow. Cool.
So, and we'll see how that does. So if we wait a year and see that it's done 10,000 views or something like that, maybe that's enough to issue to institute a or to warrant a season two.
Yeah.
And then we can start working with these publishers to say, how do you use this or how can you use this for
Yeah.
marketing without having to, pay astronomical prices for celebrities
Yeah.
and mainstreaming sites and stuff like that. So um, that's a market we're looking at dipping into.
So you say Twitch is sort of like a playground. Is this Rem Alternis has got their own Twitch?
Yep.
Right. I see.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know if I knew that.
twitch.tv/masterrem.
Master of Rem. I don't know if I knew that. I just I'd associated you with the Gen Con TV site. And how
twitch.tv/master-of-rem.
and how often do the oh, it hasn't it's deleted you guys of Nightbot. Oh, that's interesting.
Cool.
There we go.
You got security. I see.
You guys at Nightbot security.
Very
Yeah.
Shadowrun-esque security too. It was like, nope.
Shit. Yeah. 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 Let me just hack into the matrix here. There we go. I'll just hack into the matrix. I'll do a little. There we go. And you are now a VIP of the channel, so you should be able to do the things. Thank you, Rafe.
Thank you.
There's the link. Master of Rem. There you go. So yes, I wasn't following that myself. It seems I was just watching you on Gen Con TV and other and the YouTube channel.
Yeah, we've got Paranormal Albany is a Dresden Files RPG using Cortex Prime. We have Shadowrun. We moved all of our Shadowrun to the Shadowcasters Network on YouTube. We've got Prowlers and Paragons, which is a superhero setting that's a lighter system than Mutants and Masterminds. That's every other Friday with a new setting that Mobius Worlds Publishing is designing for a Kickstarter launch. We've got a Power Rangers live stream on Wednesdays, I believe. Maybe it's Tuesday.
Power Rangers. Is that a Power Rangers system, or is that a homebrew in some other kind of system?
Renegade system,
Right.
the Essence system. So we've got, and we've had even one of the developers on as a guest appearance. We do podcasting as well, so we've got some Power Rangers there. We've done the Alien RPG. We've done a ton of stuff.
I've got the Alien sitting down here, ready to read at some point. The Alien RPG, because the Vivo League guys that I work with, they're interested in running it at some point, and they they still don't understand the level of work that I'd have to do as a dungeon master, because they just thought that they could pick up Alien RPG and just they had one night to like play board games or something together, and apparently one of them grabbed this game and then they just took it around and they were like, oh, let's play this for the night, without having opened it, and then they were like 2 hours later they were still reading the book and they were like, oh, this is too much, and they just put it aside and played something else. And I was like, yeah, because it's a full-on RPG. It's not a one-page Grant Howitt. You can't just pick it up and play it that night. You gotta put the work in. What have I been telling you for years of working with you? Like, these things are involved. It took me months of reading all of the D&D books and everything to get to the level that I'm at with understanding all of the rules. And they're like, maybe you run it for us, and they just gave me the Alien RPG, and I was like, all right, I'll find a week somewhere that I can learn how to.
I was thinking that they'd be like, here, you'll be ready in 5 minutes, right? Like...
Yeah, you run this for us. So yeah, I've got it sitting down here ready to read at some point, next to my Shadowrun book that I also have got to read at some point. Eventually, I'll give myself some time to actually put some time into learning all these other systems and starting to branch out from D&D a little more. Which is why, in the first place, I future-proofed myself by saying Robert Hartley GM and not DM, because I want to be more future-proofed against going away from D&D sometime. Like yeah. So something came up before I was going to ask about. I can't remember what it was now. Something about the. Oh yes, we were going to talk about the branching into audiobooks from Alternis. Yeah. So how did that come about? How did you decide to start doing, like, let's produce some Shadowrun books?
So I started by when I was trying to pitch for the Chicago Shadows series. I met the fiction director for Catalyst, John Helfers, and he's a total sweetheart. Love him to death. Mm-hmm. And because of my work as an actor, I was like, hey, I'd love to do voice work and just help. So I did a novella that's published now. It's Wolf and Buffalo by R.L. King, and that's out on Audible. And so after that one, he gave me the Kellen Colt trilogy, which is the Born to Run series, which is a great, like, get into Shadowrun kind of series. Like, how does all this work? She's learning along with everyone else. So once I had those, every time we talked, he was like, oh, I want to do more audio. I want to do more audio. I want to do more audio. But he is so busy because he being fiction director, like, he's doing BattleTech, he's doing Shadowrun, he's doing a ton. So finally I was like, well, I could do it for you. Like, I can find the voice actors. At the time, we've kind of changed the system of how we're doing it. But at the time, all of the actors were doing their own editing. So I was like, we'll just be a middleman and you pay us to just manage it, and we'll get it done. So that kind of became that was actually before we did Kickstarters or anything else. That I took on, and we did a lot of those.
So that was one of the earlier Rem Alternis production things, was like to start that.
Right. So what I started doing is, as I met people and made connections and stuff, I was like, hey, do you wanna read for Shadowrun? And I'm always a little bit strategic about it too, where I'm like, hey, there's this Robert Hartley guy who has 19,000 followers and runs D&D, and people seem to like him, and he reads stories on YouTube, and
he does readings.
Voice, want to bring your audience into Shadowrun? I mean, read Shadowrun for us. So when did you meet Sarah for the first time? Sarah Moore, Pixies and Pins. Oh gosh, when I started with Gen Con TV.
Yeah.
So that
she's the one who introduced us in the first place. I think she was like, "Hey, I've got a friend who's looking for voice actors and stuff," and put us in touch. And then there was like a misunderstanding at first, I think, because I think the very first message from you was like, "I've got this Shadowrun book that's all set in like the little China of the setting or something," and it was like I need Asian actors for this and this and this, and I was like, I think there's been a misunderstanding because I'm not Asian. I'm not Asian, and I think it wouldn't be probably okay for me to attempt an Asian voice back in the 50s, perhaps, but I think in current day and age, I don't think it would be wise or smart for me to put on some sort of Asian voice for this. But I know this Asian D&D content creator, and I know this Asian D&D content creator. Maybe reach out to them, blah blah blah. And then you were like, okay, well, I've also got some Caucasian roles for this and blah blah blah. And then have you done any audiobooks before? And I was like, well, kind of. And I sent you my Robert Reed's list, my YouTube playlist of all of the times that I just read books and things. And you were like, perfect. let's say yes. Those are not it's not for an official thing, but essentially yes, that's exactly what you were doing. Audiobook reading. So it was a very copacetic, I suppose, of an introduction, and I was very excited to do it because, as I say, I've done audiobook adjacent things, but not done an official one before.
Yeah.
So you sent me an audiobook, and I started recording it here at home. But as anybody who watches my stuff knows, and you can probably hear in the background with the window open, because it's too hot in this room without the window open, you can hear that there's Tweety birds around, and there's neighbours. I'm very surprised that my neighbour isn't actually currently mowing the lawn. But we've got a running joke here at Robert Hartley GM that I'm surrounded by people who despise nature in all of its glory, despite having a half-acre lawn, it seems, and having to mow it every single day because they can't have it more than half an inch exactly. He's got a weed whacker, and he's got a hedge trimmer, and he's got a lawnmower, and he's got this and that and the other, and if it's not him, it's the one on the other side, and if it's not them, it's the one across the road. Everybody, I think they've taken it in turn. They've got a roster of just never letting me have a moment of actually being able to stream. So I tried recording the audiobook here, and it just wasn't happening. But then, thankfully, when I went to visit AJ Winters from Winter's Tales, she's got a recording booth as part of her Winter's Tales studio, the first D&D studio in Australia. And so I was like, "Oh, recording booth! While I'm here, can I borrow this recording booth and record some whatever?" And then I did, and now we're in the ball's back in my court for like touch-ups and pickups and things, like little lines and stuff.
Well, and happy accident, AJ is your narrator. Yeah,
so the decision was made at some point by you guys to have two narrators for each book, one to do male presenting voices, one for female presenting voices. What was the decision there, rather than to have one person do the entire book?
It came from the fiction director, actually. He's like, it's the trend now is moving more in that direction. So he's like, I want to be on board with that and do that as much as possible. Plus, a lot of complaints about audiobooks that people have is, guys doing women's voices and women doing men's voices, right, and stuff like that. So, yeah, he was like, can you facilitate and organize that? So yeah we done.
Yeah, so it was a hell of a happy accident there that like I had the narration for this book, but obviously I was leaving out the female lines, and then AJ, meanwhile, I think I helped to put some people onto other people. I was like, also, if you're looking for people, this person, and AJ was one of those. And so you gave AJ a different book, and then it sort of fell through or something, I think, whatever that project was, and she was still looking for something. If there's any other work, I'm keen to do it. And you were like, oh, I've got this other female job to blah blah blah, and you didn't know that we were dating at the time, but we ended up getting put on the same book. So AJ and I are actually doing the same audiobook, which is very fun.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I was really excited when I found out about that. So, it's. Do you want to talk a little bit about the book?
Oh, if I can, yeah, I'd love to. What can I say? I don't know what to say about it. I don't know what I can say about it.
Without giving away all the twists and turns, what's the story about? I'm interviewing you now.
Are we? Oh, yeah, okay. So am I allowed to say which book it is in case people know the books? Yes, I can. All right. So there we go. So I haven't said anything other than I've done a Shadowrun audiobook up to this point. So exclusives, everybody. Here you go. If you know the Shadowrun series at all, the one that I am reading first, the first one that I'm reading, hopefully with more to come, is the Vladivostok Gauntlet, and it is set with a guy. the main sort of character of the series is a retired. What's a good word for him? He's not a hitman, I guess. He's a retired mobster, let's say, and he's working as a janitor in a warehouse that's like a dodgy warehouse, has dealings with the mob and stuff. And then at one point, the mob turn up to his place and like park a vehicle in his warehouse right before he's about to leave his shift, and he very early says, "I wish I didn't have augmented hearing anymore." Because a regular person wouldn't have heard it. But as soon as I heard it, there's nothing. I could never. I've never been, nor will I ever be, the sort of person who could leave the girl in the trunk. So he walks over and he opens the trunk of the car, and there is a beat up woman, like naked and bruised and bloody, beaten within an inch of her life in this trunk. And he goes, "She's clearly going to die here tonight." And he's like, "Well, this is my entire life now. Like from the moment I opened this trunk, there's no way I'm going to leave her there." So he picks her up and runs off with her, knowing full well that puts a mark on his back. And then he looks after her and has to be on the run from the mob for the rest of the novella. It's only a short story, but it's a very fun one.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I haven't gotten to listen to too much of it yet, so I'm really excited for the story to finish so I can get the final review.
This is not spoilers, Wraith. All of that is the setup to the story. That was all in. That's all in. It doesn't have chapters because it's only a novella, but like that's all within like the first 3 pages or something. And yeah. I had to practice my Russian accent for it, and have dialect reminders on the screen as I'm reading to be like, oh, that's right. There's a name in there that is spelt completely differently to how it's pronounced in Russian in the Russian dialect. So I was like, oh, I've got to remind myself. I've got to sort of mentally change the letter entirely to the different vowel so that I can actually pronounce it. So yeah, check out the Vladivostok Gauntlet, or hold off and wait until you can hear me doing it as an audiobook. And the exciting thing is that I decided early on that when the Vladivostok Gauntlet is finally like ready to be out there and released and things, I think I'm going to celebrate the release of that by making like a Shadowrun 3-shot or something on my channel. So I'm going to use that as the impetus, because otherwise things just sit there and never get actually read, and I never actually put their work in. I need like a deadline to like, you need to do it by this day. So that seems like a good deadline for me. Like if I tie it in with the release of the first audiobook, I will also read through the rules for Shadowrun, and learn how to play it and actually run it on my channel.
So speaking of fiction and running Shadowrun, one of the things that I've thought it would be really fun to do for a while and would love to do, with my copious amounts of time I don't have, is to take the kind of what you just did with that beginning layout of fiction, and put like just take that skeleton and then put my runners in the same position and see how they do it.
Right. Yes.
Without having read the book and be like, where did they end up and how did they like. And see how different it ends up being from the book itself. That's kind of what I had in mind as well, to do something similar to set it in the same like Vladivostok area and be like, all right, let's see what happens. See, I've got some characters from the book that I know now. I've got some names and places and places that they go, and I know how certain creatures and characters act in the world of Shadowrun. That's one of the things that I quite like about Shadowrun, is like the world building, because to go back to what you were saying, like it's set in the real world 60 years in the future, when like magic has just appeared in the world, and what did that mean for everything, and how humans started being born with magic infused into them, and they became these different things that are like meta humans, and so trolls exist, but they're like evolved or mutated humans essentially, and same for elves and all the rest of it. And so the world building around all of those things was really interesting, because I didn't know any of it going into it. I didn't know the Shadowrun setting at all when I was sent the book, and so I had so many questions just like reading through it, being like, now it said first thing, like the guy gets out of the car, the mobster gets out of the car, and it said something about a troll, blah blah blah, and I was like, I thought it was speaking metaphorically, because I knew it was like a set in the real world kind of sci-fi.
And so I didn't know that it was actually talking about a troll until later in the book. He also encounters another troll, and it talks about him being like 9 foot tall and with horns. And I was like, oh wait, is actual trolls? And I went back to the start of the novella, and I was like, oh, so this is an actual troll that he's dealing with here, and what does that mean? And then I started looking up Shadowrun trolls. And
Yeah, it's there's it's such a rich lore, and the game has been around for this coming 2024 is going to be 35 years.
oh wow,
So, and it's funny because there is like a timeline divergence where um the game was written in the 80s, and so and it was 60 years in the future, that the timeline was, but there's like a divergence where we can start to see, like, I think goblinization happened in which is kids being born with the tusks and
yeah.
trolls and stuff like that, in I want to say it was, no, the Great Ghost Dance might have been 2012. I actually have the Shadowrun Anarchy book. And one of the things I love about the different core rule books, this is the rules light one, but right in the beginning of a lot of them, because there is so much lore, they have like these little like here's a way to catch up in 5 minutes of what has
Right,
happened in
right,
the
right, right.
past, like 80 years.
Here's what you
Uh,
actually need to know.
Right. So like yeah, 2011 was the awakening, or at least the beginning of it. Dragons appear, people develop talents and abilities that can only be described as magic. Babies are born in ways that exactly resemble elves and dwarves of legend, and the world reveals itself to generally be much weirder than anyone ever expected. Um so like you've got like all of these major milestone events. There's also Shadowrun has largely been very predictive in a lot of really bad ways, like
Yeah,
in terms of like mega corporations running our
yeah, yeah,
world.
yeah, yeah.
But one of the things is in 20, oh gosh, was it? It's very close to where we are. Oh, 2010, virally induced toxic allergy syndrome, VITAS, appears in New Delhi, India. Eventually, it kills a quarter of the world's population. So, we're just 10 years late on that, but
Yeah, yeah.
thanks, Shadowrun.
My dad was talking about this just the other day in the family group chat. He was like ranting and raving like an old man about something, and he goes, sci-fi's getting things right, and like how did they? There must be time travelers that have gone back to write the sci-fi's of yesteryear. Like Star Trek got so many things right, and blah blah blah. How did they know? How did they know everything about how the future was going to go? And I was like, twofold. Number one, confirmation bias. Like you're forgetting all of the times they got things vastly wrong. Like
Right,
all of the many things that sci-fi's have predicted over the years. They're gonna get some of them right, and you're gonna remember those and be like, oh man, Star Trek predicted cell phones. And then secondly, there's things like sci-fi's are by nature designed and written and produced by creatives, people with more creative brains, and those people tend to be more finger on the pulse of society and the direction that things are going. They tend to be the sort of people who look back at history and see what trends emerge and what things repeat over and over again. They tend to be more in tune with what people need as humans, and that's never going to change. And so like we need connection, and then apply that to what does that mean of like connection. What are the problems in connecting with people today are like connecting over a distance. Okay, so what might that be? How might people in the future have solved the connecting over a distance situation? And it doesn't take much to predict certain things like the existence of cell phones eventually and stuff like that.
the problems with AI that could
Yeah,
happen, like
exactly
that's
right. And you
do a
see in the
mental
trends of
exercise.
the dangers of capitalism right from the 50s. It doesn't take a genius to be like, oh, mega corporations are going to be a problem one day, and then to
Although
accurately predict it.
I'm just waiting on the magic. Like, let's give me the magic. That's the
Yeah,
one that, like,
like
come on,
we can handle the mega corporations if we also have the Shadowrunners. We need
right?
both.
Yeah, like
You can't bring us one without the other. We need the people who are criminal organizations taking down the man.
yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things that I love about the mega corporations too is a lot of them are run by their CEOs are dragons.
Right. Yes.
They're
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Because they're hoarding. Yeah.
yeah, they're hoarding the wealth and stuff like that. They can shape change, and they're so ancient and manipulative,
Uh,
and So rule number one about shadow running is never deal with a dragon, because they're
It
gonna
makes
find a
it
way to
makes a
screw
lot of
you.
sense. It makes a lot of sense because that is kind of how it feels in the real world sometimes. To look at the people who are the wealthiest of wealthy, the
Yep.
people who, relatively speaking, you could be a billionaire and then look and compare yourself to their amount of wealth and look like you're impoverished, because
Hmm.
it's just obscene levels of wealth to the point where maths kind of breaks down and you go, there's no, unless you use some sort of a graphic to explain Elon Musk's wealth or Jeff Bezos's wealth or whatever. Once you can see it relative to, like, oh, here's a single dollar bill on the floor, and here's like what a stack of $10 bills would be, and here's like a stack like what a chunk of 100 would be, and here's a look, it looks like 1,000, and then here's his that reaches up to the sun, and like only when you see that does it even start to be able to fathom he must be a dragon. Like there's no reason to have that much money and to not be doing it. Like the wealthiest of the wealthy people in the world, they must. The only explanation is that they're hoarders. They need to keep the money and to sit on it in piles of gold, like being able to tell where every single coin is at all times.
I do tease a little bit, because since we did that, the BattleTech Kickstarter, anytime someone complains or is cranky about BattleTech, I'm like, we'll just cry and do our $7.5 million and wipe your your tears away with.
Wipe the tears with
Oh,
the solid gold block and throw it
yeah,
away.
right.
So where are we? So where are we at? Sort of present day with both Rem and Catalyst. Actually, how did you get involved with Catalyst specifically? Like, I don't
Yeah,
think we
so
really talked about that much.
once I started doing their Kickstarters for them, um, I teasing Lauren publicly, because I would do that to his face anyway. He called me 2 weeks before the BattleTech Kickstarter launched and was like, "Hey, you want to run this Kickstarter?" And I'm like, "Dude, I have been pestering you about this for 4 months. Like, come on." Uh, so we started negotiating over cost and stuff. And at one point, I made this like offhand comment of like, "This is why you should just hire me to do marketing." And he looked at my pitch and he's like, "Well, look at your hourly rate. I can't afford you." And I was like, "Dude, you're paying consulting rates. Like, like we're a middleman here." And he's like, "Go on." So we negotiated for me to do a 6-month contract for both of us to see like if I wanted to really do it long
Yeah.
term, if he wanted to do it. So I'm on month like 8 or 9 now. Um, and yeah, so I started doing marketing. I told him I wanted to be marketing and community director. And so I'm part of the core Catalyst team now, and I've gotten to do a ton of travel. Like I can't say it, it's hard going from being the boss to
Mm,
reporting to someone again.
right. Yeah.
Uh, there's a lot of not fun things that come with that, and there's really bad days.
Mm,
But I've gotten to travel to like 9 shows this year. I've gotten to stream live on stage at San Diego Comic-Con with Critical Role actors
it's
and
incredible.
play Shadowrun with them. I've gotten to do the Realmsmith stream and play Shadowrun. I've gotten to I went to my first ever San Diego Comic-Con ever. Went to an industry party, and Matt Lillard approached me and was like, "Hey, they
Oh,
were talking good
nice.
stuff about you. What do you
Oh,
do?" And it's like,
that's
"Can
cool.
you email me?" And I'm like, "Yes, sir, sir." So like just all this cool stuff is I got to eat dinner next to Joe Manganiello at Gen Con this year.
Oh, nice.
I was borderline panic attack for that the whole time, but it was amazing. Um, so like I've gotten to do all of this cool stuff and build these cool relationships, and um I'm so grateful for that. Like it's really, I knew what I was doing, and I knew I'd be working a lot more, and I knew it would be hard.
Hmm.
But in the past 9 months, I've been able to move my company forward
Yes.
years faster than I would have on my own. And so that means a lot to me. Like those opportunities were
Yeah.
there, and I do like I've had other companies be like, "Well, what would it take to get you to come on over?" And I'm like, "You don't have Shadowrun. Like this is why I am where I am, is
Yeah.
Shadowrun and my love for it. So like I'm good right now." Like
Yeah.
thanks though.
That's
So
fair.
yeah, so I love what I do, and I love I love working for cattle. I love the people I work with. One of the things I actually told them, um, in terms of me offering myself for the first time since I got laid off from that tech startup and being interested in working for someone else. I told them that, it's a group of middle-aged white men. That is the company.
Mm,
And so I'm their first woman director, and
mm,
I'm their first queer person.
right.
Um, and but I told they didn't know I was queer necessarily, but I told them that in the years that I have worked with them and supported them and been their groupie and brought them jobs and stuff
Yeah.
like that, none of them have once hit on me.
And I'm
And
really upset.
I'm so grateful. It made me trust them in a way that, like, there's no ulterior motive.
Yeah.
My work stands for itself. Like, there's
Yeah.
all of those roadblocks, like, that have come from other problems,
Hmm.
or other, like, and there have been times I've done work and I'm like, kind of,
Yeah, right, gotcha.
I know what's going on here, but
Yeah.
also, like, fine. But like, that meant a lot to me, and that showed me who some of these people are and what
Mm,
they stand for, and I really appreciated that. So I really like the people that I work with, mostly. Um, so yeah, no, it's I there's days I wonder. The past 9 months, not only was it just me, and one other person for REM, but so
mm,
I now have a team of 4 people that report to me. So not only was I trying to keep REM floating and working Catalyst and traveling, but I was also teaching them all how to do their jobs. So, like, I felt like I had 3 or 4 full-time jobs,
right, yeah.
and there are definitely days that I'm like, God, is this worth it? Like,
Yeah, right.
but then I have the good days, like the where I get to do, like, I got a text earlier this week from Luis Carrazzo, who's in the Candela Obscura. Like,
Mm.
I just get texted by actors now, and, like, Anjali Bamani texts me, and I had a meeting earlier this week, and Matthew Lillard, what he didn't come, he's on set, but he was on the invitation for the meeting. Like, I get to do that stuff
Yeah, and
because,
that's just the life you're in. It sometimes gets that way. You're like, holy shit,
yeah,
this is the life I'm living. I
and
get that sometimes as well when I'm like at Gen Con this year when I was meeting people that were like, you'd see their reaction and they'd sort of like double take to see you and their eyes would light up and they'd be like, oh Rob, and you'd be like, oh shit, not only do they know who I am, but they are excited to see me. And that's somebody that I've enjoyed the work of since before I was doing it myself, and now I'm kind of on the level where, and yes, it's good feelings. You're like, all these people that like people I admire the work of, and now I'm just getting to work with them as peers.
yeah. But I don't know if you can hear a whistle, but I think one of my dogs is, like, nose whistling in his sleep. So if you hear that, that's what that is.
I can, yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it was one of the birds outside or something maybe. I can close the window. I
Maybe
think
it's
people
coming
are.
from you.
Yeah, let me check. Let me close my window. I'll just deal with being a bit hotter if necessary, for the sake of.
Maybe it is. I'm not sure what it is anymore, but
I think
interesting.
it was. Yeah, I think it was. I think it was outside my window actually. Um. So. So when did it become when did it become obvious that this was going to be like a full-time job for you? Was it like when you started Rem Alternis, like you knew that like you were going to dedicate your full-time thing? Was it right after you got laid off by the tech company that you were like, let's go
Yeah,
full-time with this?
that was when it started,
Yeah.
and I'd still be doing it just full time, that alone, um if I didn't have the opportunity with
Yeah.
Catalyst. We were getting enough work. Like, this is the first year. The last year was the first year that we were really invested in being full time,
Hmm.
for Catalyst, or for REM, and then this year is like our second year. So I'm thinking next year is when we flip and become profitable.
Right.
Great. But balancing it all in the meantime, yeah, again, there's those moments that, like, I wouldn't give it up for the world, and there's
Yeah.
moments where I'm also biding my time, where it's like, at a certain point, REM's going to be doing enough that it's time for me to leave
Yeah.
Catalyst. So I don't think that my spot there is forever.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that and maybe I still part-time consult for them, or
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
need or want, or whatever we come up with something. But um, yeah, I just it's been really cool to be part of it, and to have, I've got one full-timer that just works Catalyst projects. There's a ton of Kickstarters coming out next year for Catalyst alone, and then I've got a crowdfunding director that's on all of our other projects. I've got an operations director who's teaching that crowdfunding director, so like they're kind of sharing projects for the moment, but the idea is eventually she'll manage that part of REM, so I don't have to. I'll advise and kind of be able to sit back a little bit,
Yeah.
but um, and then our marketing, we have one full-time marketing person that's handling like our Roller Crit contract, our Monster Fight Club contract, our Boosted Reality contract. So as that continues to grow, I two more clients and we'll need another full-timer. So
Mm.
we're in a state of growth right now, which is great.
Nice.
So yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. What else is the sort of the present day of Rem and Catalyst? What else can you tell us about, like, what is projects that you're currently working on,
Yeah.
or
So I'll be at PAX Unplugged, and we're gonna be live streaming there for Catalyst from
it's
the
like the
booth.
first week of
The
December, is it?
first, second, and third. So you should totally go to Catalyst YouTube channel because we will be live streaming there, and we're gonna announce everything that's coming for 2024. And there's some big stuff. So Catalyst to this point has largely been Shadowrun and BattleTech, and we've got some new IPs that we are so excited to share. So
Nice.
you're gonna want to check that out. Um, so not too much I can talk about there, but they are going to be
Hmm.
launching in the next few weeks a new Kickstarter or backer kit crowdfunding project for uh, two board games for their board game division. It's Parachute Panda and Fandooble. Fandooble is this cute little dragon hunting treasure hoarding adventure, and Parachute Panda is skydiving pandas that happen to be landing over a crocodile pit. So your goal is to make sure all your friends land first, so the alligators get full up on them before you hit the ground. For the kids. Um, so
Oh man,
I love these board games. They're so
just
great.
oh man, concepts like that. It just makes me go like, what? How many? I'd love to see the brainstorming idea set that, like, the line of what if this, and then what if this, and what if this, that
Uh-huh.
leads to something like that, where it's like, okay, we're parachuting, right?
Yep. Yep. Hey, well, and I being with some of these guys on calls and stuff like that, the director of our board game division, Mike Ritchie, loves puns and stuff like that. And we have a game coming out next year. I won't announce the actual title, but I blanked on it, and I was like, the only thing I can think of right now is Poop Ninja. So then that started like
So
spiraling
they're
into
like,
like,
what
okay,
would
Poop
Poop
Ninja is
Ninja
gonna
be
be
if
the
it was
next
a,
game.
like, you can literally just, with certain creative types, I just love creative people. You can just, like, you could open up a random word generator on Google and be like, all right, Velociraptor sausage, and be like, okay, Velociraptor sausage. What would a game be if it was about Velociraptors and sausage? Is it Velociraptors making sausages, or is it making Velociraptor meat into sausages and then trying to
Right?
sell it
Yeah.
as
Oh,
if it's normal sausages without letting people know? Like, and then just come up with the whole game mechanics around it and everything. That was one of the other
it's
things. Like, I recently ran a one shot horror special for the Viva guys on their D&D channel. But it was not D&D. I just, because it was a one shot, I just wanted to make it like really rules light, and I kind of wanted to play with the Call of Cthulhu rules, because I've not really played a lot of that, but I liked the mechanic of everything being a percentage chance. Like in Call of Cthulhu, you've got like a 73 in fighting, and you roll a percentile die, and you've got to get 73 or less in order to succeed something. So I just took that mechanic and I just made my own system for this one shot. It was real simple. They had like 6 stats that were basically just reflavored the stats from D&D, and it was all percentage checked, and they got to choose whatever they wanted. Blah blah blah. And then people were enjoying it so much that I've got a lot of people saying like, "Hey, have you released that as a thing? I'd love to play it. I want to like, if it's on your Patreon, I'll come and get it." Blah blah blah. And then Wraith, one of my mods in the chat right now, she said something in chat about like I think it'd make a good card game. It's making me think of like Marvel Heroes or something. And then since she said that, like I continued on with my stream, and then I had to pause it like 5 minutes later and be like, "You bastard," because now I can't think of anything other than making it in a card game, and now I'm just completely distracted with like, how would I make it? What are the mechanics of making that into a card game, and how would I do that? And then you could use tokens for this bit, and you could use and you could have a deck of cards for the different items. And then I was like, oh damn it, now I've got to put this down. And I went over into my Slack channel that I've got with the people I work with, and I'm like, all right, into the ideas channel, can't make this into a card game. And then we started talking about we were already in talks about the Kickstarter and what the Kickstarter next year is going to be. And then I was like, maybe the Kickstarter's to make this into an actual like board game card game situation instead of the adventure module.
Yeah, it's the ideas that spring and make these really cool games. 'Cause I love board games, but I don't get to play them that often, and I don't have the mind for like I make other creatives look good. That's what, that's what I do with my marketing and stuff like that. But periodically, there's a game I'll be like, man, like whoever came up with this is just so smart. Centurion is an expansion from the Duke, and Centurion's about to come to retail. The Kickstarter's done fulfilling. But what I love about it, I'll show you the back of the box here. So it's it plays like chess.
Oh, okay.
Like, each of the pieces has different moves that they can do based on what is on the board. But every time you move a piece, you flip it, and it has different things it can do on the back.
Oh, wow.
So now you're playing chess, but you're also and each of the pieces does these different things. But then you have to plan like a couple moves in advance too, because
pieces are going to be flipping each time they do. Yeah.
So yeah, this is a clever.
That sounds fun. I like that. That's lots of crazy strategies.
So yeah, I love that kind of creativity that comes with it.
Yeah, I was astounded at Gen Con because I had we met a guy doing your Shadowrun. Let me just get it over here. Running in that Shadowrun game that you had us playing in, we met the guy Thor.
Thor.
And then the next day, like having met him, the very next day I was going around, it was a Sunday, and it was like the end of Gen Con, everybody was packing up. And we were going on the way to meet whoever we were going to meet, and we walked past Thor's stall as he was packing up, and he was like, oh, it's you guys, that's how copacetic that it's like, that you're the one who comes and gets the free game. And I was like, free game? And he was like, oh, did you not see my Facebook tweet, my Facebook message? I was like, what? And he goes, oh, the game that I've been trialing, the game that I created, I was just going to give it away to the next person to turn up to the stall because I don't want to pack it. I don't want to like take it home. And so he gave me the game and signed it, and I was like, holy shit, what a great coincidence. And then I went away and played it a couple of times with some friends, and it's really fucking good. It's such a good game. And I messaged him afterwards. I was like, is this genuinely like the first board game you've ever made? He's like, yeah. I'm like, it's so well balanced and so well thought out, and it's like fun to play, and yeah. So like, board game design is something else. I listened to a podcast that's all about like think like a game designer. It's called, and it's mainly talking about board games. But I found that the things that they talk about can be applied to D&D and TTRPGs as well. Like things like don't use miss a turn as a feature in your game, because what you're doing at that point is saying, in order to play this game, you're not allowed to play the game for a little while.
Right.
So things like that, I've managed to pick up on it, because I think that just people who think like game designers, it's admirable and impressive the way that people can design things like that from scratch.
Yeah. Well, a couple other things coming for next year from the Catalyst side is for Shadowrun, since it's the 35th anniversary. I've seen a couple people talk about it in chat, so I hope this gets them excited. They are re-releasing first edition.
All right.
So every year they are going to re-release
Interesting.
first edition, second edition, third edition, fourth edition. I think until they get to because right now it's on sixth edition, so I
Mm-hmm.
think they're probably going to go until a seventh. Um, that is not announced or anything. So
Yeah, but
um,
it like if from a marketing perspective that makes sense, right? You go
yeah,
first edition and then sixth edition, and then
exactly.
the day you release sixth edition, you announce this time next year we'll be releasing
Yep.
seventh. Yeah, it makes
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. Uh, so that's coming for the 35th. Other Shadowrun stuff that's coming that I can talk about is there's going to be a Shadowrun minis game. So this is pretty exciting. There was one several years back, but it wasn't very well received.
Mm.
This one I'm very excited about because Rem Alternis partners with Fragging Unicorns Games, and they created a cyberpunk fantasy mini skirmish game, Gangs of the Undercity, and that's going to be the core of this. Um,
Interesting.
so really excited for that. Um, Gosh, what else? Then for BattleTech, it's the 40th anniversary, so there's going to be a lot happening for the 40th. Um, the Kickstarter will fulfill. There's going to be lots of force packs and cool
Mm.
stuff like that that come out for BattleTech. Um, yeah, I think that's all I can talk about for the Catalyst stuff. Um, for REM, um, I'm pretty excited. So some of our clients are super cool. We're wrapping up actually right now. The Kickstarter that we have two Kickstarters live right now.
Oh.
One is Kevin J. Anderson is one of our clients. So if anyone doesn't know, he's one of the two writers for the current renditions of Dune.
Oh, okay.
He's one of the script consultants for the films
Wow.
now.
Holy shit.
He's written for Star Wars. He's written for X Files. He's written like he a lot of what sci-fi is for us today is because of Kevin J.
Yeah.
Anderson. So
Wow.
he's
And you're working with him
he's
on
got
a
a
Kickstarter.
yeah. So it's called Persephone, and it's actually he and a sci-fi film producer wrote a script for a feature they want to do that's Persephone, and so to start to build up the marketing for that, Kevin novelized it, and so they're releasing the novel on Kickstarter right now. So it's about a space mission to the closest potentially viable planet for life, which is Proxima B.
Mm.
Um, but they call it Persephone because it's prettier.
Yeah, it's
And so like all the
nicer than
challenges,
letters.
yeah. So all the challenges that come with space travel, and is the planet ready, and what do they find there, and all that kind of stuff. So, really excited for that book, and that's live right now on Kickstarter. Um, and
People can find
then
it just searching Persephone.
Yeah, Persephone. And then the other one that's live right now is is a RPG one. It's called Hellslayers. This is a small project, also by Fragging Unicorn Games, who I just mentioned. And it's a Morkborg setting that's
Oh,
basically
right.
demon slaying in space.
Nice.
So it's called Hellslayers, and it's a lot of fun. We're going to be releasing some live streams and actual plays over the next couple days, the last couple days of the Kickstarter.
Excellent. I haven't
I'm
played any
probably going
Mockbog yet. It's been on my horizon for over a year now since Dreaded GM started getting super into it. But I'm not actually had a chance to look at it or play it or even read the book yet.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's I haven't gotten to play it yet either, so maybe Monday might be my first one. I'm at least running tech for it. I don't know if they need me to play yet or not, but that's going to be fun. So both of those are right now, and then November and December are historically bad times to run Kickstarters cuz everyone's saving up for holidays and stuff like that. So
I'd imagine,
um
yeah.
so then for next year we're looking at one of the ones I'm very excited about is called Dear Pen Pal, and it's by one of the fiction writers for Shadowrun and BattleTech, Jennifer Brozak. And basically, she is writing letters that will actually get mailed to you, like a pen pal,
Hmm.
for 2 years. But it's basically your pen pal is telling you stories about their life um, as a 12-year-old living in uh, a haunted house in Belgium. So Jennifer actually grew up in the house that inspired this, and so some of the stories are fiction, but some of the stories are pretty spooky and from her own
Wow.
experience, stuff like that. So I'm really excited about that one. I love her writing. So being able to have like actually get snail
That's a
mail
really
again,
that's a real different like that's
yeah,
that was like I don't even know what category to put that in. Like in my brain, I'm suddenly like that's so different to anything.
fiction, but like
Yeah,
yeah, it's so
like
really
personal
exciting.
fiction. Like you mailed it and it arrives like a serial fiction. It's like reading a serial book, but it's mailed
Yeah,
to you in letter form. It's like a new
yeah, so
genre of like what is that?
yeah, so I'm really excited about that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. Um, let's see, I have to bring up my Trello because we've got so many of them that I forget. So we've also got so Kevin J. Anderson has been releasing about 3 or 4 Kickstarters a year, so we'll hopefully be working on all of his from now on. That was we actually did this one for free because I was like, dude, like let me
I want to
convince you
work
that
on
you
it.
want to use us.
Let me
So.
show you. Let me show you what we can do. Yeah.
So Dear Pen Pal, we've got Exit Vector is fun. It's an aerial combat minis game, and it's designed by Catalyst demo agents that love Shadowrun,
Hmm.
that don't like the rules for riggers in Shadowrun. So
Right.
this lets you like you could it's system agnostic, but it's got a skin for Shadowrun. So if you have a chase scene, you could stop what you're doing, lay out Exit Vector, run your aerial combat minis game of like
Nice.
an extraction or a chase scene or
Yeah.
whatever, and then finish your Shadowrun game
Nice. I
from
like
there.
that.
But you actually
Yeah,
can give the riggers.
I've always liked when people do that in D&D where they like use other games or like mini games and stuff, and it's like, all right, stop. We're gonna quickly play this game of Jenga.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So that's coming. We've got a comic book that's steampunk fantasy. So we've released 2 issues through Kickstarter. So issue 3 should be coming next year. I love it because it's written by one of my friends, and we've done a live stream that takes place in the same world called Like Clockwork.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I love about it is that it's a steampunk world that has some fantasy races in it, but there's been a tempest brewing for thousands of years over one part of the world, and nobody knows what's in it. And then one day it dissipates, and magic is released into the world, and it reveals a continent below that has halflings. So these halflings are now exploring the world around them, and that's who the comic book follows.
Hmm.
Um, so magic now in a steampunk world. Um, but one of the things that I love is that the story that we do on the live stream happens at the same time as the comic, but the two never really cross paths.
Hmm.
But there's little shout outs in the comic from the stream and vice versa. So at one point in the stream, I got to play in it. So we're caravanning through the desert and we look up and see an airship. Um, and meanwhile, in the comic book in issue 2, they're flying over the desert. They look down and they see a caravan in the desert.
That's cute.
So I
I like that stuff.
love those little Easter eggs. But I
Yeah, I
love
like
the
that.
world. I'm addicted to this world.
Nice.
Um, what else is happening? I talked about those. Um, and then we've got Rift Zone Contact, which is another miniatures game. Um, and it's got the complexity of like Warhammer or Battletech. But what I like about it is that each of the minis has a RFID tag in it. So you play it with an app. So it eliminates the barrier for entry. So you don't have to learn all the crunch. You don't have to do all that. But
Right. Yeah.
if you have a mini in front of you, it's the phone knows how far it is from its enemy, what it can do, how to
Oh
roll the
wow.
damage, all of that stuff. So you can just play.
Jeez.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, RFID tag minis game that is going to be a lot of
That's
fun,
cool.
and it keeps historical records. So as you play
Oh.
it, you can be like, this piece has killed this many pieces. It's really good to use in this situation. So
Wow.
you
Okay.
can kind of level up
Oh
your
jeez.
um, pieces. So yeah, that's all the stuff on the horizon that I can think of right
Whew.
this minute.
Do you got eating and sleeping in there as well? You gotta remind yourself to do those because at the moment that sounds like a 24-hour thing.
When I remember, well, again, it's my team. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I do very little of that. It's my team that keeps it all floating, and I couldn't do it without them.
What
So
sort of
I
team
just
size are we talking?
so my Kickstarter and marketing team is 4 people, and then my volunteer team that does all the streaming and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I think our core community has 20ish
Hmm.
that do tech or editing or marketing or Patreon management or whatever it is we need done. So yeah, it's that community that um, oh, cool. Teslon just messaged me that there's one more thing for me to do this weekend. So thanks. Love you. Um, so yeah, it's really just because of them. I just point them all in the right directions.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair enough. You got to be able to delegate, right? That's something I'm still not
Yeah.
good at.
Well, and
I'll
that's
get there.
because I was a director of operations. Like that's really the skill set I bring to the industry. Is that a lot of times, Catalyst is not discluded. Again, I would say this to their face. It's a bunch of bros that love playing games together that are like, let's start a company, and they
Yeah,
have no like little skills to do that.
yeah, yeah.
So one of the things that I bring to the table is I've done process and operation, and I'm really good at managing people and motivating people and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So that's what I bring. So
Mm-hmm.
I can just get the right people together, then I can motivate them to do the right things,
Yeah,
and follow these processes that have never existed before. Um, so that's what I do.
amazing. Before we wrap up, I'm just going to remind people that if you want to ask either of us a question, I know I've been somewhat ignoring the chat since I've got such a charismatic, charming guest here to be chatting with instead. But I am reading and I'm seeing them. But if you don't want your question to be lost in the ether, make sure to redeem them with a channel point redemption. There, it only costs you 50 channel points, which you should have by now. And then I'll be able to go through the requests and ask all of the questions all at once at the very end here. But before we get onto get those questions coming in, I want to talk about sort of future of blue sky stuff. Like, where do you intend to be going with this? Where would you love to be? Where would you love to be in however many years' time? Like, what's your dream for Rem Alternis?
That's I've thought about this a lot, and there's a couple of different directions based on, like, to be entirely honest, like I think our best expertise is in Kickstarter management.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the problem with Kickstarters is a lot of time, like we get a small retainer up front, but Kickstarters don't pay until the end. Like
Yeah.
a lot of
So
creators don't
yeah,
have the money until it's done.
yeah.
So we're sitting there with like 3 months of work to do and not 3 months of money to pay our people with. So
Mm-hmm.
marketing is where we like make our money from,
Mm-hmm.
where we can pay our people. So it's not the as fun part, but
Yeah.
it's a necessary part. So like I don't really see one growing without the other at this point,
Mm-hmm.
until we have enough jobs where there's constantly one ending
One's
and
ending,
someone.
so you can use that to pay for the
Yeah.
next one.
um so I think that honestly, I guess the legacy that I want to leave behind is it's about helping
Mm-hmm.
community members. Like it's about helping other people achieve their dreams.
Yeah.
um People can't do that without marketing. People can't do that without knowing how to run a Kickstarter, and like they're putting their entire heart and soul into a project that is their baby. um and so helping them make that happen is where I kind of get my fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
um so I think in terms of where that leads us in the future, I think like being that industry contact where it's like, oh, okay, oh, you're new to the industry, let me introduce you to Rem. Like
Mm-hmm.
being that person where it's like you're going to need the resources that this team has.
Yeah.
um and I think that there's one or two other people in the market that are doing the same thing, but like I'd love for that to be able to be us. So I think long term, that's what I would mostly hope for. I think there's a ton of ideas. Ooh, the pie in the sky, as you said. That's the business answer. The
Yeah.
fun answer is that Chicago Shadows gets the license for Shadowrun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've got a couple of irons in the fire with Hollywood. I hope all of them pan out,
Yeah.
and we just, we can produce a Shadowrun series.
Yeah.
Um, that is mainstream, that's
Hell
loved
yeah.
as much as Edge Runner or
Yeah.
Altered Carbon or Game
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
Thrones, or that would be the
Just
ideal.
to introduce a bunch more people to the world who don't even know, the what's the League of Legends one, the
Arcane.
Arcane, yeah, like Arcane did, where it's suddenly everybody's watching it going, this is amazing, even if they don't know
Yeah.
anything about the setting, and then afterwards, maybe like during while they're watching it or whatever, they hear, oh, it's actually from this other thing, League of Legends, and suddenly getting people into that, and
Yeah. And
similar,
to have people fall in love with Shadowrun because of the same story that made me fall in love with Shadowrun,
yeah,
that would be super cool.
yeah, sweet, good answer. All right then, let's see what people have been asking, and I will wrap us up after that. I've lost it. Where is it?
Come back to us.
There it is. Found it. Okay. Excuse me. Wraith asked, I know nothing, so excuse my ignorance. Does Shadowrun have classes? And if yes, what's your favorite class?
Oh my gosh, we should talk about everything Shadowrun. This is going to go on another hour. So yes, it's more of archetypes. So instead of races and classes, it's metatypes and archetypes. So you have for Shadowrun, similar to Cyberpunk, maybe some different names, but you've got the face. That's the one good at talking and negotiating. You've got the street samurai, who usually is heavily augmented. So like think metallic cyber arm and cyber eyes, and like you mentioned, cyber hearing and stuff like that, that can shoot things or punch things and kill them. You've got the you can do covert ops and stuff like that, which is a little more sneaky spy type. You can do deckers, which are hackers. So they can actually like plug into the matrix. They can leave their body behind and put their consciousness fully into the matrix. You've got riggers that can control drones and vehicles. So they leave their body behind too at times and can put their consciousness into a drone and follow you around and stuff like that. You've got your mages. There's several types of mages. So there's combat mages that can, cast the big boom spells and stuff like that. There's lots of spells of manipulation, and I love casting Ice Sheet under cars. It's one of my favorite things. You've got so combat mage. You've got adepts. There's physical adepts and social adepts. Physical adepts are kind of like the Iron Fist, where you boost adepts in general. You're boosting your own stats rather than like magic around you. But Iron Fist, like all of a sudden you can punch through a wall. Social adepts, I tease that in real life I'm a social adept. So social adepts can kind of have the ability to turn the charm on, or intimidation or stuff magically kind of turn that on. Adepts, summoners, you can summon spirits to fight for you. So that's a type as well. Yeah, so those are some of the basic.
If you want to see these 4 of these in play, where can they? I think it's still as a VOD, available as a VOD somewhere, right? Is it on Gen Con TV's, or is it on Catalyst? Or
it's on Catalyst channel. So YouTube, if you YouTube Catalyst Game Labs, we have our Gen Con's TV streams. We are still working on breaking them all down, so you'll be able to find them by name. But you will find Robert and AJ and I and Thor.
And
playing.
His name's escaped me.
I'm blanking who our other player was.
I'm blanking on his name, but it's in there somewhere. If you head over to Catalyst Games, I think it's also might be linked on mine. Ryan, that was it. Yeah.
Ryan Reed. He's also one of our narrators.
Another narrator, yeah, another audiobook voice actor. On my YouTube, under the community tab, there is a post that I try to keep updated every so often of all of my appearances on other people's channels and things, links to their videos and whatnot as well. So you can head there, and I think it's on there as well as like under Gen Con Shadowrun appearance. But there's the different. We've got Rude, the Troll Street Samurai, that was Thor's character. We've got Frostburn, the orc combat mage that Ryan was playing. We've got Zipfile, the dwarf decker that AJ was playing, and then we've got you, the elf covert ops specialist the sort of face of the group that I was playing. And these are the four sort of pre-made characters that come in the beginner box set that that we were very excited to play. You did a really good job of that, by the way. I was raving about that game for a little while afterwards. I was like, that was like genuinely, it's not an easy thing to do, to have a one shot that is only 2 hours long, that has to show off a setting and a story and stuff, and have combat and also intrigue and things, and have it all. Like, your pacing was really what impressed me most. I think was like
awesome. Thank you.
Like, I'm not blowing smoke either. Like, it was a really well done game, that it felt like we had a little bit of a taste of everything that there was to offer, but like only a teeny little like hors d'oeuvre.
Honestly, it means a lot, because that was my second time GMing Shadowrun.
You did a great job of it.
I made it up.
Yeah, you did a great job. So go check it out if you haven't already. On to the next question. Wraith asked, as a fellow roleplay lover, do you have a favourite moment that's happened in one of your games from you or a fellow player?
Ooh. Oh. I think every game I've played, there's the memory, like, oh, that game, I remember when this happened.
Yeah. There's always something, and then like later today you'll be like, oh, I should have told the story of that, because that was a thing that happened.
I'll tell this one, since you told me anything goes on this channel. I was playing a mission once at Gen Con Origins, and the GM was one of my friends, who's actually the missions developer right now for Shadowrun, so he's writing these stories now. But we had a hostage that we needed to get information from, and we couldn't convince him. Like, none of us were faces, so none of us had
right.
had persuasion or negotiation or any time of charisma.
Just to pause there to explain to people who don't know the game how it works. Like, I, as being the face, I had it's similar to D&D in that you're taking your stat, which is your strength dex, whatever, and you're taking your skill, which is persuasion. I'm trying to equate it to what people might know. And so you've got like two different pools essentially, and you're saying like, oh, you're doing your charisma and persuasion and whatever. And then you have a number in this and you have a number in that, and you add those numbers together, and then you take that many d6s and you roll them, and you've got to get 5s and 6s to succeed. Correct. And any 1s are considered fails, and you'd want to have more successes than fails, and blah blah blah. But because you're adding these two numbers together, and I was leaning into what my character could do as the face, I had like a 8 in persuasion and a 6 in something else, and so I was rolling like 14 d6s.
Shadowrun.
Yeah, Shadowrun. You're just like big old fistfuls of dice.
Yep. I have a ceramic bowl that I'll roll in, and it like ching, 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 ching. It's great.
Anyway, you were saying none of you are faces.
Yeah, so none of us could convince this guy to tell us. So since none of us could intimidate verbally, I decided to intimidate physically. So I was playing my favorite Shadowrun character to play, who's an ice mage. And so she finally just walks up to this guy, grabs his crotch, and casts Ice Spear. Told us everything.
Yeah, yeah, I think you would.
So she did a very low force at first, just to be like, this isn't a threat. It's a promise. It's like, this is happening. So that was one of those moments where, and actually Tesla in chat, one of my proud out of character moments was, I really love getting into character. So when I sit down at a table, I commit. And he's like, it was really weird for me as a GM to like know you and be friends with you, and then you sat down at my table, and the way
suddenly
you looked at me, he's like, the only way I can describe it is ball shriveling hatred. And I was like, oh, I did like
proud.
Yeah, Shadowrun dice.
A little bit of dice ASMR for the people who are audio only, and for the people who are watching, you can see all of these dice. Like, this is the sort of beautiful, pretty dice that you've got going on, and the 5 and the 6 have the symbols on them that showing that those are the numbers you want to be rolling. The 3-4-2, nothing particularly special, and then the number 1 is a little troll head sort of thing. to say that you don't be rolling those. And I've got all of these just in case you need to be rolling 24 d6s or something. It's very fun. It's very fun. If you like the physical rolling dice, oh boy, it's the game for you.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Nice. What are the symbols that I'm looking at? It's a troll for the one, right?
Yeah, it's the Shadowrun totem is the S,
And the
and then
Shadowrun totem, right?
and then so that's that one.
Now,
This one doesn't have the troll skull.
no,
But
not
the original,
it's not just me, right? But the troll horns. I'm not the
yeah.
only one who sees it, right? That's
Oh dear God,
you've never seen that before. You've never seen.
I have never seen that before.
Now you can't unsee
Um,
it because the troll definitely has two penises
I will
sticking
never
out of its
unsee
head.
it now. Thank you for
It is
that. I
two. It
can't
is
wait to
two
figure that
straight
one
up
out later on.
erections. There you go. That's what you're gonna see from
I
now
did.
on.
I did tell him. So here, in your best Australian accent here for me, there is something called the Shadowrun Rides Deck. Can you say that?
Shadowrun rides dick. Or in Kiwi, it'd be even better because the Kiwis have the vowel shift of the E to the I, and so just sitting on my dick. We went out to just drink some beers and sit on the dick. You know, real sort of bogan New Zealand, you'd say like, oh, Shadowrun rides dick.
Yep.
That's the Shadowrun rides dick.
Whose clever idea was this?
Isn't there a Shadowrun setting that's down under or something? Is there's Seattle and Chicago?
It's all our world. Yeah. So all the cities.
The settings that they have. Oh, there's a Germany.
Yeah, there's stories that happen in Australia. Australia is known for its mana storms, that just show up and like will rip you to shreds.
Right.
But there's a lot of Shadowrun fiction that happens in Australia.
Yeah, nice, very exciting.
Yeah.
I think that was so that's your role play story of grabbing somebody's dick and
Yep.
and ice frosting it off.
Shadowrun, what would it be? Shadowrun Spears Dick?
Shadowrun Spears dick. Yeah. We've got Melville's asked, so interesting and a bit nostalgic for me. I played the first edition of Shadowrun, but my question is, are there any tips for a woman interested in entering into this industry?
Oh wow. God, that's a good question. It's really largely a welcoming industry, but you always want safety in place.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very supportive industry too. You know, like all the stuff that came out with in the past with abuse allegations and stuff like that. Like the industry is very supportive. So largely it feels like a safe space within the industry. But in terms of a public persona and walking around and stuff like that, like one of the things that is harder is now that I have, if I can share a personal story. So when I started with Catalyst, it was in March. In June, it was Pride Month. And I dared to say on Reddit that BattleTech is for everyone. And now I get death threats from far-right people. And so my world kind of changed a little bit where like I'm very independent. I love bouncing from place to place in conventions, and this Gen Con, I was never anywhere alone. So like even during our game, Robert, and you can see it on the stream, there's someone sitting close by that's just watching the crowds. So
what a world.
Yeah, so many people are supportive. Where like anytime I tell people that, they're like, if you need anything, like I'll walk with you. I'll like come talk to me. Like there's code words in place and stuff like that. So like just be mindful of your own safety. Because unfortunately, like I'm not the first one to get a threat. I won't be the last. But even within Catalyst, a lot of the men have gotten threats and nobody actually follows through with anything. But just being a woman, people think you're an easier target. And I'm not particularly observant. My perception score is very low. So having someone that's looking out close by is important to me. So yeah, it's the industry is very welcoming as a woman, and there's tons of people there. We even in our community at REM, when we do casting, we make sure that there's at least a woman or femme presenting, and at least a person of color
Yeah.
in all of our shows, because there's enough platforms out there that have all middle-aged white men.
Yeah.
No offense to middle-aged white men, come play with us, but know that you're going to be sitting at the table with a diverse group.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of room for that in the industry, and it's a very welcoming place right now. It's just something that you just got to be mindful of taking care of yourself.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Joe Baby asks, what would be your top 3 tips for running your first Kickstarter campaign?
Ooh, top 3 is the project followers. Number 1. Number 2, for me personally, when I ran Chicago Shadows, I had all of my backer updates ready already, and the stress level, because it's your baby, it's your heart and soul. I went catatonic. I couldn't work. The entire campaign, I just sat there and clicked refresh over and over and over again and worried. So have someone with you, or some like a friend, a volunteer, whoever, that can help you get some of that stuff done when you're having the anxiety and the imposter syndrome and everything else, to help you get through it. That can push the buttons even if you've prepared everything. And then third, research what other similar Kickstarters have done. See why, like, you can scroll through a Kickstarter page and be like, I kind of understand why this failed. Even if it looks good, you can pinpoint certain things where it's like, the reward maybe was too expensive, or how they conveyed this or told their story wasn't quite there. What problem are they solving for? So do the research and find out what worked really well for people and copy it, and find out what didn't work well for people and avoid it. Help that build your campaign.
Yeah, like I've always been a fan of the sort of a adage of like, everybody makes mistakes. If you learn from them, that's a good thing, and if you learn from other people's, that's a great thing. Like, somebody learn from somebody else's mistake is you're in an even better spot. So look into what other people have done, and done well and done poorly.
Awesome.
That's all the questions that we got in. So I would be remiss to my partner and editor Fancy if I forgot to ask you for a soundbite for the YouTube shorts. This is the world that we live in. We got to put these out as in every possible medium possible, and everything. You got to do short form, you got to do long form. So if I could get you to summarize basically what that last question was, the 3 sort of tips for Kickstarter, and put it into like a 20-second to a minute, somewhere between 20 seconds and a minute, just so that I've got something that we can be like, hey, YouTube short, if you want to start a Kickstarter.
I gotta remember what I said now. Okay. Top 3. Take 2.
We got this. Take 2.
Top 3 Kickstarter tips. Number 1, have enough project followers to convert to funding. Number 2 is to have... I'm forgetting what I'm saying.
We can edit chunks out. It's fine. No pressure.
Number 2 is prepare all of your backer updates and have someone on hand to help you through when the anxiety takes over. And number 3, research as many similar projects as you can and copy what worked well for them and omit what didn't. And those are 3 quick tips for success.
Wonderful. Look at that. Perfect. Like a bloody pro. We did it.
After 3 takes.
After 3 takes. Doesn't matter how many takes it took. We got it in the end. We're not Stanley Kubrick over here. I'm not going to make you do it 70 times. Maybe ask them to prepare a soundbite beforehand if they want. No, I put them on the spot, Wraith, and this is how I do it. No, don't challenge my process. Excellent. Thank you very much, Rem. I'll not take up any more of your time. We've gone a little bit over, but this has been fantastic. Where can people find you? And the work that you're doing.
On Facebook as Rem Alternis, as on YouTube at Rem Alternis Productions, Catalyst Game Labs at Rem Shadowcasters Network. Here on Twitch at Master of Rem. We're on Patreon as Rem Alternis. I'm trying to start to speak Instagram.
It's
I don't usually do it
it's difficult
personally.
when every different platform has different different handles. I was lucky enough to get Robert
Yeah.
Hartley GM on everything. Um,
Nice, nice.
but yeah, I've had a few guests on that are like, okay, so let me pull up my link tree.
Yeah, exactly. And then we're also at rumalternis.com if and all of our socials and stuff are there too. So
Yeah, remalternis.com for everything, and then you'll be able to find everything else from there, I guess. So thank you very much for joining me. Let's round out this short rest because we were having a downtime in Shadowrun terms, and so we've finished cleaning up the weapons. We've finished what did you call it? Not charging up the foci, was it?
yeah.
Yeah. We've finished off our things. What sort of quest are we about to head off to do now? Are we going to go talk to Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, we've got a new job.
We got a new job to get.
Let's go to the meet. We'll
We
do our
need some more
legwork.
credits. We need some more money.
We're not
So
walking into a trap like you did, and
wonderful. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody in the chat as well. Thank you for your patience in me completely ignoring you. Is there anybody online on Twitch that you'd like to raid into? Because I always like to give it to my guests as an option.
Ooh, let's see. Hey, that Robert Hartley guy is streaming.
Yeah, I've heard.
You know what? Jamie Daggers is great. My dog is snoring, by the way, if you can hear that.
Jamie Daggers. Can you
Yeah,
spell that
all
for me?
one word. JamieDaggers.
Wonderful. We come here for the guests. Don't know who this Rob guy is. Thank you, Ray. That did remind me though that I didn't actually explain who I was in case people are here from Rem's community and you don't know who I am. I'm Robert Hartley GM. I'm a full-time Dungeons and Dragons creator. I do a couple of YouTube channels, including the Viva La Dirt League D&D channel. I'm a DM for them, but I'm also a DM in my own right, all over the internet at Robert Hartley GM. So go and check me out and hit follow here if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.
Alright. And then we gotta wave awkwardly until the raid kicks in. Bye! Bye, everyone. Bye. Good night. Bye. And thank you to the mods for being cool people. Couldn't do it without you. Bye!
Fans and fine folk. That's right, I missed out friends because I don't have enough friends. Maybe tell your friends about me, and then they'll watch my stuff and become my friends or something.